Josh practiced today. We'll determine his status tomorrow, though, but he's progressing.
Mark, I think in the early going, you all have 23 offensive fouls that you've drawn in 6 games. Most of those are not charges, they're illegal screens. It's kind of one of Lou's specialties, but there's like 8-9 different guys that have gotten one. What's your thought on maybe the way that you all are generating those and how big they are for your team?
I mean, I think a lot of it's just physicality on the ball. Obviously, Lou's really good at it. I also think, putting pressure on the ball helps you with the illegal screens, and it helps you get an out-of-control handler that allows you to take charges. So picking up the ball high, being aggressive out on the perimeter, getting out of the water, I think that stuff is kind of step one towards getting them a little bit out of control on drives and, having to catch you on screens.
Luka won't be the first guy that you've got to negotiate those ball screens where you're getting Lou or whoever you want on the ball back on and the other guy retreating back. What did you think of the way that you all handled those situations of the quick traps and then retreating back to a shooter?
Yeah, I mean, we have to do that when they try to call up a matchup. Late game, teams try to do it to you. I actually thought that was an area we could improve coming out of the game just because there were a couple times we switched onto him kind of unnecessarily. We've got a coverage for that, and it was just a miscommunication, but it happens slow enough usually that you can get that done. So just something we got to keep building on because it's not going away against the really ball-dominant, elite offensive players.
You guys had 70 points in the paint in the last game, and I know overtime was probably a factor in that as well, but you've had multiple 60-point points in the paint games so far this season. What's been most encouraging about the way you guys have been able to generate those looks at the rim?
Well, we've got to do it, like obviously we're playing small at times, and so you got to do it with driving and cutting, which are the space that we're able to generate with our bigs allows us to do. But you have to have a paint presence one way or the other, and teams do it in different ways, but the best offensive teams put pressure at the basket, and the way we have to do it is with driving and cutting specifically.
Mark, I know this. Go ahead.
We have been using a lot of players so far in the game, and now that we know what Isaiah can do, we have more players that he can play. And what are the factors to be considered when you decide when and which players to put on the court, and what is the most important?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'll say is that when it comes to depth, more is better. So we'd rather have more and deal with that than have less and not deal with it. And then the factors are basically every guy has their own strengths that they can bring to the team and their own individual identity, and we try to just encourage them to play to those strengths. And then if they become consistent in playing to those strengths, then we can deploy them at opportunistic times to help the team. And we think that that's kind of our best path forward right now. It allows us to maximize the whole roster. It allows our players to stay live, so to speak, all the time. And when they go in the game, they know why they're in the game and what the team needs from them. And we're going to try to put them in positions to be successful when they go out there.
Mark, you guys had a top 10 defense before the All-Star break last season. I think you're 6th right now. Other than playing hard, which we can obviously see, what are some of the things that you all do defensively that, maybe is surprising, given the personnel, how high you guys rank defensively?
Well, first of all, I'd caution any stats right now. 6 games in, I mean, there's more than 90% of the season left, and so that's the first thing I'd say to any stat that exists right now, positive or negative. Defensively, we try to have a really fundamental team. It's not complicated what we're doing. We try to be very disciplined to fundamentals, and then the personnel. People can have opinions about that, but the one thing that you can't take away is Dort. As a point of attack defender, he not only impacts the game, but he impacts the scheme and allows us to be pretty conservative where other teams have to be aggressive on elite players. I think Baisley is also another person that's worth pointing out, dating back to last season too. I mean, he's a big wing. He's also a switchable big. So in that game, just to take that game as an example, with those two guys, it's like you got Doncic. He's an elite offensive player. You're able to play multiple coverages against him and give him different looks without any drop-off. You got Dort playing in a regular coverage. Wiggins is guarding him in a regular coverage. You're playing a 5-man defense behind it, hopefully with some fundamentals. and then all of a sudden you can just start switching them with Baisley, and there's no drop off. And so the personnel of those guys helps you, and then the fundamental base I think has been pretty good, but we still have a ways to go there. We should be better, to be honest with you. He shot 19 free throws.
One of the commonalities between last year and this year is you don't have like a rim protector in the traditional sense that sometimes we associate with dominant defenses. How have you schemed things up to overcome that?
Well, some of it's the point of attack. Like they have to get to the rim, and they're going to get to the rim, but how they get there and how often they get there is certainly a thing. And then I think encouraging everybody to be help-oriented and to have a 5-man defense, especially when it comes to the most quality shots. So in transition, we have to be a 5-man defense. At the rim, we have to be willing to stick our body in the plays 1 through 17. And then in terms of scrambling out of those rotations, we have to be high alert on really good shooters and open threes, and that's all we're really trying to do, and just repeat it possession by possession.
I know you mentioned that Bliss organizes a lot of what you guys do defensively. Like, what does he mean to your scheme and just the way you all have played on that end of the floor?
Well, it's him certainly leading the maintenance of it day to day. Like we come out of a game, one of his primary responsibilities on a team level is to evaluate the team defense and make sure we don't have slippage there. And then, we meet in the morning. There's team responsibilities for every assistant. That happens to be his. Maynard's been doing some defensive stuff with him this year. And then that trickles into practice, and it trickles into player development. So these guys do a great job individually. Guys, David Daigneault is over there with Oos and Trey Mann right now for 10 minutes, and that's all defensive fundamental work. And so there's follow through as well, and it all works together. And it's the whole staff. But Dave does a lot of like the big picture maintenance on that end of the floor, and does a really nice job with it. He's very consistent.
Last one for me on this topic. Like, I know it's hard to think forward to next season, but like if you have a guy like Chet in there who is that rim protector, like how does that change maybe what you all do defensively?
We'll see. We don't know what he is yet. So, that's one of the things with, I think every rookie player, there's obviously reasons we draft them, and there's things we know coming in, and then there's surprises one way or the other. And so we try not to make a ton of predictions or assumptions there. We just try to, evaluate it kind of day by day and just solve today's problems and stuff like that. So, that's basically what we've done to this point. It's what we'll do next year, what we'll do the year after that.
Follow-up to Joe's first question. How easier is it to game plan when you have guys like Dort, and then behind him, Aaron Wiggins, J-Dub, Bays, for when you're trying to scheme against other team's best player?
Yeah, it's a huge factor. Like he can't. It's not coaching. It's not coaching at all. You've got the guy Darius Baisley is an elite shot contester. And it's like against these guys that just like play over the top of you. You need that, and if you're never going to shut him out. It's not. Doncic had a triple-double. He had 30 points. He had a huge game, obviously, but like he was 8 for 23 from the floor. And we were able to keep kind of part of the game at bay, and you're fighting for margins. So many games end up being close that it's really not about shutting anybody out. It's just about playing the probabilities, and instead of a 14 for 24 night, he goes 8 for 24, and that's the difference defensively.
Obviously, you probably wouldn't want anybody on another team to score or get going, but is it easier to or how tough is it to game plan, whether to say we'll try to hold their best player to the limited role and then be aggressive on everybody else, or focus all on the other team's best player and then kind of make these other guys beat us?
For us, we're just trying to identify what the other team is reliant on, and sometimes it's a way of playing, and sometimes it's a particular player. With Dallas, it's a particular player, obviously, and whatever they're relying on, we just try to nudge that down and make them play a little bit more on our terms. That's ideal. Now, again, we have a long way to go with this. There's no victory lap. Doncic shot 19 free throws, and a lot of those were controllable on our part. I wish I could sit here and complain about the officiating, but I can't. We put ourselves in compromising situations there. But that's the goal, is like identify what the other team does well, make them beat you another way, and then when they beat you another way, stay true to that. And that's the hard part, because there's a lot of variance in that over the course of 82 games.
Just didn't want to get fined.
Huh?
Didn't want to get fined.
No. I would tell you if I was disappointed. That was us. We were way too handsy with them.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Thanks,
See ya.
Coach.